At exactly 6:42 p.m., Deputy Mason Holt's body camera captured something no one at the scene realized would soon destroy an entire web of lies. A woman in an expensive cream blazer stumbled backward across a perfectly manicured lawn, clutching her forearm. "That dog attacked me," she screamed. "Arrest him before it kills someone." Neighbors rushed outside. Police sirens echoed through the quiet subdivision. Standing on his front porch, Colton Rainer, a decorated U.S. Army combat veteran, remained completely still. Beside him sat Koda, his black and tan German Shepherd service dog. Koda didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply looked up at his owner, waiting for his next command. Something didn't make sense. If Koda had just attacked someone, why wasn't there even the slightest sign of aggression? Deputy Mason Holt glanced from the frightened crowd to the calm dog, then back to the trembling woman. What his body camera had quietly recorded during the previous 30 seconds would soon expose a deception no one expected. But before the truth surfaced, Colton would face the greatest battle of his life, one that couldn't be won on a battlefield. It would be fought in his own neighborhood, and the enemy wore a smile. If you enjoy stories where courage defeats corruption and justice always wins, subscribe and let's begin. 3 years earlier, Colton Rainer believed he had finally found peace. After multiple combat deployments overseas, he purchased a modest home in the quiet community of Silver Creek Estates outside Bozeman, Montana. The neighborhood was peaceful. Tree-lined streets, children riding bicycles, neighbors waving from their porches. It was exactly the kind of place where Colton hoped he and Koda could begin a new chapter. Koda wasn't just a pet. He was Colton's highly trained service dog and loyal companion, helping him navigate the invisible scars left by years of military service. Every morning the pair walked the neighborhood before sunrise. Most residents smiled and greeted them warmly. Everyone, except one. HOA President Vivienne Ashcroft watched from behind her front window with growing resentment. From the very first day Colton moved in, she decided he didn't belong, and she was determined to make sure he wouldn't stay. Vivienne Ashcroft never confronted Colton directly at first. Instead, she weaponized the HOA rulebook. Within weeks, violation notices began appearing in his mailbox. His mailbox was supposedly the wrong shade of black. His American flag was said to be improperly illuminated. His lawn was allegedly a quarter-inch too high. Each complaint came with another warning, another fine, and another reminder that the HOA could place a lien on his home if the violations continued. Colton calmly fixed every issue, documented every repair, and paid the few fines he couldn't immediately dispute. He refused to argue. Years in the Army had taught him that discipline often defeated anger. But Vivienne wasn't interested in compliance. She wanted Colton gone. The reason became clear during a closed HOA board meeting. A private developer had quietly approached the board with plans to purchase several adjoining properties near the community entrance. Colton's corner lot was the final piece needed to complete the deal. Most homeowners knew nothing about the proposal, but Vivienne stood to gain influence and possibly financial rewards if the project moved forward. When Colton politely declined an unsolicited offer to sell his house, Vivienne's frustration turned into obsession. "If he won't leave willingly," she muttered after the meeting, "we'll make him leave." Days later, neighbors noticed something unusual. Vivienne had started carrying dog treats whenever she walked past Colton's home, lingering near the property line and watching Koda closely. Koda never reacted. He remained seated beside Colton, focused only on his handler's commands. Deputy Mason Holt, who occasionally patrolled the neighborhood, even commented to another officer that Koda appeared to be one of the calmest service dogs he had ever seen. Vivienne realized that if the dog would never make a mistake, she would have to invent one herself. 2 mornings later, Vivienne put her plan into motion. She waited until several neighbors were outside walking their dogs and children were riding bicycles along the street. She wanted as many witnesses as possible. As Colton finished watering the flowers near his porch, Koda sat quietly at his side, wearing his dark service vest. Vivienne strode toward the property line with forced confidence. "That dog shouldn't be in this neighborhood," she shouted loudly enough for everyone to hear. "He's dangerous. Colton remained calm. "Ma'am, please stay behind the property line. Koda is a trained service dog. He isn't a threat to anyone." Ignoring the warning, Vivienne stepped closer. She slipped a dog treat from her pocket and tossed it toward Koda. Without waiting for permission, Koda ignored it. He never moved. Several neighbors exchanged confused looks. One of them quietly remarked, "I've never seen a dog with that much discipline." Vivienne's expression hardened. She glanced around to make sure everyone was watching. Then, in one swift motion, she brushed her forearm hard against the thorny branches of a rosebush growing beside the sidewalk. Thin red scratches appeared almost instantly. She stumbled backward and let out a piercing scream. "He bit me," she cried, clutching her arm. "That dog attacked me. Somebody call 911. Panic spread through the street. Some neighbors rushed toward Vivienne. Others stared at Koda in disbelief. The German Shepherd hadn't moved an inch. He remained seated exactly where Colton had left him. Calm, silent and alert. Within minutes, flashing red and blue lights filled the neighborhood. Deputy Mason Holt stepped out of his patrol vehicle, his body camera already recording. No one realized that the tiny camera on his chest had captured the moments leading up to the accusation, and hidden inside that footage was the truth that would soon bring Vivienne's entire scheme crashing down. Deputy Mason Holt approached the group with calm authority. "Everyone, stay where you are," he said. "I'll speak to each of you one at a time." Vivienne hurried over, holding out her scratched forearm. "Officer, that dog lunged at me. He bit me right here. I want that animal removed immediately and I want him arrested." Mason examined the injury without commenting. The marks were shallow, uneven, and looked more like scratches than bite wounds. He then turned to Colton. "Sir, would you secure your dog while we investigate?" Colton nodded. "Sit." Koda lowered himself beside the porch without hesitation. "Stay." The German Shepherd didn't move, not even when another patrol car arrived. Mason raised an eyebrow. A dog capable of following commands with such precision didn't fit the picture Vivienne was describing. One by one he interviewed the neighbors. Some admitted they had heard Vivienne scream. But when asked if anyone actually saw Koda bite her, the answers became uncertain. "I heard her yell. I looked over after the scream. I didn't actually see the dog touch her." The statements didn't match Vivienne's confidence. Still, department policy required animal control to place Koda under temporary observation while the allegation was investigated. As animal control carefully led Koda into their vehicle, Colton knelt beside his loyal companion. "You've done nothing wrong, buddy," he whispered, gently rubbing Koda's neck. "I'll bring you home." Koda leaned against him for a brief moment before calmly walking into the transport kennel. For the first time since returning from military service, Colton felt powerless. He wasn't just fighting to protect his home anymore. He was fighting to protect the partner who had helped save his life. And inside Deputy Mason Holt's patrol car, the Bodycam footage had just begun uploading into the department's evidence system, waiting for someone to watch it closely. The next morning, Colton sat quietly in attorney Sabrina Keene's office. After reviewing the incident report, she looked up with a thoughtful expression. "Something about this case doesn't fit," she said. "Your dog has years of service records with no history of aggression." "That matters." Colton slid a folder across her desk. Inside were Koda's military training certifications, veterinary records, and letters from therapists describing the dog's role as a certified service animal. Sabrina nodded. "This isn't enough to win," she said, "but it's enough to start asking the right questions." Her first request was simple. She subpoenaed the complete body camera footage from Deputy Mason Holt's patrol shift. Not the edited clip attached to the report. The entire recording. 2 days later, the department delivered the uncut video. Sabrina watched it once, then she immediately replayed it in slow motion. At exactly 6:41:28 p.m., 30 seconds before Vivienne screamed, the footage revealed something everyone had missed. Vivienne glanced over both shoulders. she stepped toward the rose bush. Then, with deliberate force, she dragged her bare forearm across a thorn-covered branch. Seconds later, she clutched the fresh scratches, stumbled backward, and screamed, "The dog bit me." Koda never left his position. He hadn't taken a single step. Sabrina paused the video and smiled. "There it is," she whispered. "That's the truth." But she knew one recording alone might not end the case. To convince the court, she needed more than proof that the accusation was false. She needed to show it was part of a deliberate scheme. As investigators dug deeper into HOA records and interviewed former board members, a troubling pattern began to emerge, one far bigger than a single fake dog bite. The investigation uncovered far more than Sabrina had expected. 3 former HOA board members admitted they had resigned after repeatedly questioning Vivienne Ashcroft's aggressive tactics against homeowners she wanted out of the neighborhood. One neighbor revealed emails discussing a private redevelopment proposal that depended on acquiring Colton Rainer's corner property. Another produced meeting notes showing Vivienne had suggested using repeated code violations and legal pressure to encourage an uncooperative owner to relocate. With that evidence, the case shifted from a simple false dog bite allegation to accusations of fraud, abuse of authority, and filing a false police report. Weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Judge Theodore Whitlock instructed everyone to remain silent as Deputy Mason Holt's unedited body camera footage appeared on the courtroom screen. The room fell completely quiet. The video showed Vivienne looking around to make sure people were watching. Then it captured her scraping her arm against the rosebush. Koda never moved. 30 seconds later, she screamed that the dog had attacked her. A stunned silence filled the courtroom. Sabrina didn't need a dramatic speech. She simply looked toward the judge and said, "The evidence speaks for itself." Vivienne lowered her head. For the first time, she had nothing to say. After a brief deliberation, the court ruled entirely in Colton's favor. The false allegations were dismissed. Koda was officially cleared and immediately returned home. The HOA was ordered to reimburse Colton for his legal expenses and damages caused by the fabricated claims, while Vivienne was removed from her leadership position and faced criminal proceedings for filing a false report under the applicable law. A week later, Colton walked through the neighborhood with Koda at his side. This time, neighbors greeted them with applause instead of suspicion. As the American flag waved gently above his porch, Colton smiled, clipped Koda's leash a little looser, and continued home. Because in the end, lies may create fear for a moment, but the truth leaves a record that no one can erase.